Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee on the 13th of November. It's a Wednesday. It's 9:16 in the morning, and I'm going to jump into the live stream real quick and make sure we got sound and picture and all the other things that we need. Okay. We got sound and picture. Now, while people come in, I'm going to put a few fast posts up in the chat, waiting for people to come in. It'll be crowded today. Now, I'm just going to get my email address up, and that'll be it. All right. Looks like I got everything up there. Okay, being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through a long list of military, and mostly military and some political events that are happening in America, in Europe, in the Middle East. And we're going to show you how very, very, very close we are to war breaking out in Europe and the Middle East. Now, I've been around a long time, and I've never seen anything like this. Now, World War II kind of looked a little bit like this, but not as extensive all at once. No. World War II built up, and you got to remember this: in World War II, the weapons were at least 10%. Well, I mean, they were about 10% of what they are today, maybe 5%. Missiles, I mean, it's even 3%. I mean, the amount of destruction that the world is capable of pouring on itself in a relatively short period of time is much, much, much more than World War II or even Vietnam. Okay? It's huge. It's even more than what happened in the Iraq War. The Iraq War was, I don't know, roughly 30 years ago. It's much more advanced. Way, way, way more advanced. Okay? So we're going to go through these details, and I'm going to start now. Let me see if we got people coming in yet. I don't want to start until people show up, and we don't have very many people in yet. but I guess we'll just start. I'll go off my notes. Um, First, let me get my prayer requests done because I'm likely to forget. Uh, Prayer request for MF, Mike Frank, MF, Mike Frank, MF. Asking for prayer that Jehovah mightily helps MF to quickly and swiftly pay off all debts as quickly as possible. This person wanted me to put the prayer request out verbatim, and I will read it again. Prayer request for MF. Asking for prayer that Jehovah mightily helps me to quickly and swiftly pay off all my debts as quickly as possible. Okay, I don't mind doing that. Okay, we have a toss request for GB, girl boy, GB, girl boy, toss. A prayer request for MF, Mother Foxtrot, MF, Mother Foxtrot, MF. Healing for shoulder, cannot lift it. For Mother Foxtrot, MF. Healing for shoulder, cannot lift it. Okay, that takes care of our prayer requests and toss requests. Okay. Israel is setting up what's being called defensive lines between Israel and Syria. Now, this is usually tanks, it could be digging trenches, barriers to stop tanks, fences maybe, but that's not much of it. Now, this could be for a number of reasons. Iran is threatening to do a ground invasion because they really can't guide their missiles because they have no radar left. People on the social media like to run around talking about how lethal and potent Iran is, and that's absolutely gone. Okay, that used to be the case that they had some potency, but it's over with. They don't. And they're sitting there as sitting ducks. The king has no clothes, so to speak. Okay, they got nothing. Now, as I've told you numerous times, the reason they're so bold and even lunaticy about this is they are confident that they will never be run out of Iran. Bible prophecy in Jeremiah tells us that this is not the case. I'll read it to you in a minute. And they have many tanks, many soldiers, caves, tunnels, all sorts of stuff, mountainous terrain and stuff like that. A ground invasion would be rather difficult, not impossible, but difficult. Okay, it would take a long time. Normally, it would require probably in excess of 1,000 tanks. We're not seeing tanks being moved into the region of the Middle East, so that's not there. It would involve perhaps 1 million soldiers. We're not seeing anywhere near that amount of soldiers moved. It would probably require at least 300 aircraft, fighter jets, bombers, everything. That is there. And lots of warships, and there would have to be a massive amount of supplies set up. I mean, we're not seeing any gearing up for a ground invasion into Iran. Nothing, okay? And they're thinking that they might have some of their facilities destroyed. They're rather confident that whoever attacks them isn't going to attack, cities and apartments and stuff like that. Their liability is basically losing their economy by knocking out their oil, and the ports that they use, the piers and the ports that the ships pull up to, the tanker ships, and they load these tanker ships with the oil, and the ships float off to sea and deliver the oil. Okay, so without the facilities to offload the oil in the piers and the ports, that's the end of their oil business. Okay. Airports, military airports would go, all airports, because Iran would just convert civilian airports into military airports, so they'd all go. A lot of their Navy vessels would go, their aircraft would probably get destroyed to a good extent. Government buildings, military command centers, all this kind of stuff. So they figured that they could survive. Their losses of soldiers, the way they're reckoning it, would probably be no more than several thousand. 20, 30,000 would be rather high. Maybe that would be more. And I'm talking about what they believe. And they would be around to rebuild and come again another day. The chances of Russia being able to come to their aid is minimal at best. Okay? That's the reality of this. They have no nuclear warheads. They're not nuking anybody. They can't guide their missiles into Israel. They might be able to use drones, but I'm not. Drones need guidance too, so I'm not so sure they're going to use drones. And they might try to do a ground incursion, which I think Israel is doing the right thing, bolstering the border with Syria. Now, that's a two-way street. You build up the border with Syria, and then you also, if needed, can invade Syria. If they dig trenches and stuff like that, they just have to put, steel plates down across the trench or something like that, or fill the trench in areas and just run the tanks, the jeeps, the trucks, mobile artillery, towed artillery, and everything else across those bridges. So it could be a sign of a ground incursion into Syria, but I'm not leaning there very heavily right now. Okay? Iraq is definitely going to be in for some attacks, taking out their radar, whatever radar is left. And it's the same for Syria. Now, I'm going to read you the prophecy about Iran, which I've done many times, but I'll reiterate it and do it again. We're having people come in now. It took a while. All right. We're basically in the latter part of Jeremiah 49. And some of the churchianity people do broadcast this out there. So I'm not alone on this. I mean, it's not being kept secret, Now, all of Jeremiah 49 is very good for these days. Some of it in the beginning may have happened, but the bulk of it's yet to come. It starts in Jeremiah 49, verse 34. The word of Jehovah came to Jeremiah the prophet, it's Yeremahu, against Elam. Now, Elam consists of parts of Iran, Iraq, and Syria. So these parts, like part of Iran is southwestern, but it's in Iran. So if you're attacking southwestern Iran, you're attacking Iran. So I would say that it's safe to assume this is going to cover Iran, Iraq, and Syria, all three. In the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, saying. So the prophecy was given during the days of Zedekiah. It's not for the days of Zedekiah. This is unfulfilled. Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, behold, I will break the bow of Elam, the chief of their might. Well, this is just about already happened. What is a bow? The wood, you pull it back and you release and the arrow goes. So the bow is the missile launcher in today's times, and the arrow is the missile. And it says, I will break. Now let's look at that word break. It's Strong 7665, shabar in Hebrew. Let's see what word Strong's uses in English for this break word, okay? Break down, put in pieces, broken, crush, destroy. You got the idea? Their missile launchers are still intact, but they can't get anywhere with them because they have no radar to guide their missiles. So they could launch a missile and just take a pot shot, but maybe there's more to come on this, probably. Will break the bow of Elam, the chief of their might. Well, that's what the Iran, Iraq, and the Syrians rely on is the missiles. They don't rely on the Navy or the Air Force or the infantry. It's their missiles. And upon Elam will I bring the four winds from the four quarters of heaven, and will scatter them towards all these winds, and there shall be no nation, now that's a goyim, no heathen nation, whither the outcasts of Elam have not come. So God's going to put them in a diaspora, or scatter them into all the nations of the world, every one. Which is what they want to do to Israel, destroy Israel and scatter us around the world, and then pick us off. Let's keep reading. For I will cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies. Dismayed. That's Strong's number 2865, and it's in Hebrew chatat. And let's see what word Strong's uses to in English that he puts this into. Breakdown, confusion, fear, frightened. Okay, they're afraid now. I don't think we're in the fullness of it. And then we're in verse 37 in Jeremiah 49. I will cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies. And the enemy word shows up here as the plural, so it's not just Israel attacking, other nations too. Okay. All right. And I don't think Chile or Ghana or Bolivia is going to attack Iran. It's going to be big nations. Okay. I will cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies. And let's look at the word before. It's the punim word, in the face of. Punim is face, in the face of their enemies. So they'll be dismayed before, in the face of their enemies, and in the face of those that seek their life. And I will bring evil upon them, even my fierce anger, saith Jehovah, and I will send the sword after them till I have consumed them, which is what they have in mind for Israel. And then it says, and I will set my throne in Elam. This doesn't mean God's going to rule out of Elam, because he's going to destroy the place. He means the throne for judgment. He's going to set his throne there as a figure of speech, I would assume, to judge Elam. And will destroy them, and will destroy from thence the king and the princes, saith Jehovah. But it shall, now this is where you gotta be careful people don't trick you. But it shall come to pass in the latter days that I will bring again the captivity of Elam, saith Jehovah. Well, they're not yet, it didn't happen yet, so the return is going to happen at the towards the end of the second 70 of Daniel 9:24. In case you don't know it, every single Hebrew manuscript dating back to 900 AD, which is the oldest I could find, none of them interpret Daniel 9:24 as 70 weeks. That's absurd stupidity. It's Shavim Shavim. It's 70 and 70. So there's two 70s. The first 70 was the Babylonian captivity, and we know that was 70 years. So the second one is also going to be 70 years, not weeks or months. Okay. And we know that towards the end of that is the end of the tribulation and the end of Gog and Magog. And Persia is in Gog and Magog. So it regroups, it returns from captivity decades down the road, and then they get involved in Gog and Magog and learn another lesson. Okay? That's what this is saying. So this has not yet happened, and it's about to happen. Now, we had a major event last night. Major, I mean huge. There's a little bit of discrepancy about this event, but it's not significant at all, and I'll explain. 2 American destroyers in the Red Sea were attacked by the Houthis. I understand they used 8 drones, 5 ballistic missiles, and 3 cruise missiles. This was a very serious attack. It wasn't a warning or a glancing blow or a shot across the bow. It was a serious attempt to destroy the American warships. Now, these people, these terrorists like the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, ran back militias, the Iranians, military, they're psychotics, they're nuts. Why would they do something like this? It has no strategic value. They can't defend against America. The only thing they're banking on is, scaring America away from the Middle East. America has not issued a statement as to if there was any damage to these 2 destroyers. Now, it may never come out what happened, or it may come out. We got to wait and watch. But the fact that such a serious attack took place last night is not disputed. In addition, you got to hear this. They attacked the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, American aircraft carrier, in the Western Arabian Sea near Yemen. I'm having trouble with the attack on the 2 destroyers and the Abraham Lincoln because they were in different locations. So it might be getting reported wrong. The 2 destroyers that got attacked could have been the escort vessels with the Abraham Lincoln. But it'll come out and in the details over probably the next 12 hours or less. But you have to understand it doesn't really make a difference for purposes of this analysis. I mean, tactically it's a little different, but it means that they're attacking the American aircraft carrier and the destroyers. It's common knowledge in the Pentagon that the Houthis are a puppet or proxy of Iran. It's probably 90% unlikely that the Houthis would attack American warships without clearing it with Iran. I mean, it could be, but unlikely. Like I say, it's common knowledge in the Pentagon that if you shut down Iran, you're going to shut down the Houthis. The Houthis said it was in return for bombing runs America and the UK conducted against the Houthis in Yemen 2-3 days ago. So they are essentially, why am I calling them psychopaths or psychotics? Because they're believing their own lies. America attacks the Houthis with a few jets, with the UK 2 or 4 jets. What would they do if 140 jets attacked the Houthis in Yemen and they hit 30 or 40 sites of theirs and shut down their oil exports, which is likely something you're going to see in the immediate future? Maybe not. Maybe America will just go back and blow up 2 or 3 locations. I don't know. Before we can analyze the counterattack by America and the UK, we have to know if there was any damage to these warships or were there any casualties. And we don't have that information yet. So once that, because this is just hours ago, so once that information comes in, we could take a better crack at what America will do. If the ships were not harmed, which is possible, but I think unlikely because they're not talking about it, then the counterattack could be quite light. But they have hit American ships before and caused damage, including an aircraft carrier and destroyers, so I think they probably did cause some damage. The Houthis, in their public announcement, where they have an obviously over-agitated general talking like Mussolini or something, he said they accomplished their goals. Well, their goals could be to scare America or something like that. Okay, shifting topics. France is going to give Ukraine 6 Mirage 2000 jet fighters. This is the most advanced jet fighter that France has, and France is a formidable military power. Germany said, and you got to listen to this, Germany said that Putin has to stop attacking civilian locations in Ukraine within 24 hours, or else they are going to send advanced long-range missiles to Ukraine and allowing them to attack inside Russia deeply. Ukraine is told to do with these long-range missiles is to attack the Russian supply chain so that troops would run out of ammo, food, medical, and all sorts of replacement parts, uniforms, and whatever. Okay. So you've got to understand that this is one of Putin's red lines, but his red lines have been crossed a lot of times, and he does nothing except bark more. But like I told you for many, many months, there's a point where Putin's going to stop barking and he's going to have to retaliate. In the last 24 hours, probably counting back to yesterday, which would be Tuesday, 1,900 soldiers were killed in Ukraine in 24 hours. Now, that's not making Putin very popular. I have not confirmed this, but people are saying the North Korean troops in Ukraine are defecting. That's a big troop loss, and Putin's popularity is going down. That's scary for Putin. Now, this is not confirmed yet, but it's likely true. Taiwan gave Ukraine 6 advanced anti-missile defense systems, not offensive, defensive. So this is just to take down aircraft, drones, and missiles coming into Ukraine. Likely it's a counter move for the North Korean troops coming over there. And I have not confirmed this, but there's some sporadic here and there reports that these North Korean troops are defecting over to Ukraine. I don't know if that's true. They might be surrendering because they don't want to get killed. This I don't know. There's the Kursk region where Ukraine has been occupying a good-sized chunk of land. And Russia's been trying to take that piece of land back and failing repeatedly. He has not driven the Ukrainians out of that piece of land. That makes Putin bad. Now, Biden the other day approved $6 billion with a B, $6 billion of military aid to Ukraine. Now, this isn't going to be money, it's going to be war toys, weapons. The UK is now asking Biden to give Ukraine an additional $20 billion of weapons so Ukraine can keep going considerably longer after Trump is serving in the White House. I have no idea if this is going to be granted, but $6 billion plus $20 billion probably gives Ukraine enough to run the war at least 6 months. Or it gives them enough to create a massive offensive against the Russians all at once. You getting the idea why we're getting to explosion level, breaking into a big war? You could call it the Jeremiah 30 verse 11 war, which I'll cover with you. Yesterday, North Korea and Russia finalized by signing a mutual defense treaty that calls for either party to give immediate aid, whatever is required immediately, to the other one. So if Russia gets attacked, North Korea will immediately supply Russia with weapons, missiles, soldiers, stuff like that. K-rations, anything, artillery, whatever they need. And it's a vice versa. So if somebody attacks North Korea, like South Korea, Putin has to come help North Korea. which would manifest, I'm quite sure, with warships and planes. And this could be a massive spark for a war in the Asia Pacific theater. It gets a lot worse, just be patient. The US and the UK each have one aircraft carrier group in the Baltic region now. The Baltic region is a very big hotspot in Europe. Each of them sent one of their aircraft carrier groups over there. So you have two aircraft carrier groups. The British probably can carry 50 or 60 fighter jets, and the Americans 70 or 80. So that's a substantial amount of firepower. Substantial. Let's not kid ourselves. And I would say, as a minimum, there's probably 4 to 6 destroyers and missile cruisers with the aircraft carriers, and they never mentioned the submarines. But I'm quite certain there's probably at least 4 submarines with them, at least 2, but that's pretty skimpy for Russia. It might be 6 or 8. They got to protect these aircraft carriers. These are what's called the capital ship, and they have vulnerability. And they don't mention the submarines, but believe me, they send submarines with aircraft carriers in a hotspot for sure. There's a Russian warship now in the sea between France and the UK. I forget what you call this, but there's a body of water between them and there's a Russian warship there, and it's supposed to have quite potent anti-ship missiles. It's not a submarine, it's a warship. Now, there might be submarines loitering around under the sea too, but I don't know that there are. This is very threatening to the UK because Russia has repeatedly told the UK, if war breaks out, I'm going to hit you first. He's also told America he'll hit America on the homeland if war breaks out. Could Putin do this? Sure. Could he wipe the country out? He never said he'd wipe it out. He said he'll hit him, and he could hit him. And that could mean the sudden attack on Washington, D.C. from Revelation 17. Again, we don't get the details in prophecy, but we are told to watch by Yeshua. So we watch, and then we try to look at what's going on and say, gee, could this be when this gets fulfilled? And I would say yes, but I can't tell you for sure. This is end times, and you must be prepared for many surprises, twists and turns, and unexpected events. You have to be, because we don't get all the little details. Trump appointed, or he named, I should say, Huckabee to be the ambassador to Israel. And Huckabee is rather, I mean, he sees Iran and Hamas, Hezbollah, and so forth pretty much the same way Netanyahu does, you know. Bomb, 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 bomb Iran and get rid of them, you know. So Huckabee is, I would say, to the right of right wing, and this will infuriate the Shiite Muslim terrorist states. Okay? Huckabee's no Hochstein. Huckabee's a hawk. You know, he's, you know, this is scary to them, and they're just really waiting for the other shoe to drop with Trump getting in office. But the shoe that drops when Trump gets into office is going to be a size 25 shoe. It's, you know, a huge shoe. It's not a little penny loafer. This is a massive shoe that's going to drop. I'm not done yet. Let me finish, and you'll see all the other dire stuff going on. But remember, relax. This is just prophecy getting fulfilled. All things work to good for those who love the Lord. Now, he also appointed some woman, I think, as the ambassador to the UN. Maybe it was a guy, and this person is also pro-Israel. He's putting Marcos Rubio in as the Secretary of State, not Elon Musk. And Rubio he likes Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah as much as you would like seeing a rattlesnake in your bed at night, So that's also lighting up the terrorist states in the Middle East. And he's no fan of China and Russia and North Korea either. Neither is Huckabee. They're very opposed to these states. Elon Musk is not going to be the Secretary of State. It's a new commission, a new position, and the job of this new commission for Elon Musk is to economize, basically downsize the U.S. government. Okay? Now, getting rid of the income tax is going to knock out the IRS by about 80%. And then probably within 2 to 3 years, another 10% will be gone, and I would say by the 4th year, they'd be down to 5%. They'd always have a bunch of cases and trials lingering, but that would all be gone soon. Okay? Now, the savings are going to be much greater than that. You could easily cut the American payroll by 50%. They have agencies there that are worthless. NASA, U.S. Geological Survey. Let's talk about it. You have the Department of Education that doesn't teach anything. What do you need that for? I mean, you can keep a little one, but not a big one. You got the Department of Agriculture that doesn't grow anything. You got the Food and Drug Administration, which the Trump administration is going to revamp. And that's going to probably reduce a lot of them. Or maybe not. Maybe it'll increase them. But you got the, what do they call it? Housing? Department of Housing, I think, that doesn't build any houses. The Food and Drug Administration makes no drugs. They have people that track the weather, that's fine. Need to know the weather, that's okay. Department of Commerce, that's a joke. Department of Transportation, have you read about train wrecks in the last 2 years? Many times. Well, they can go. The post office is probably not going to have a lot of people fired, but I imagine he'll revamp it and make it way more efficient and better. Musk is not a politician, he's a businessman. He knows how to go in and cut the fat out of these things. And the fat's been building up for, 70, 80 years. It's huge. It's become a bureaucratic mess. How do people get promoted in the government? Well, the agency gets a new, bigger budget, hires more people, then you got more managers and bosses, and that's how they rise to the top. They don't rise to the top on their merits because they performed so well. That's like practically never the case. They get raised to the top because they got new hires. Now, I haven't heard Trump talk about the war on drugs, but one way to really clean up America, and I think Trump knows this, is to legalize drugs, practically all of them, if not all of them. Before, I think it was 1918, America had all these drugs legalized. And, you probably have about the same amount of addicts in America on drugs today as you did when you were able to just walk into a store and buy a bottle of heroin pills. Go to Google and look for the pictures of the empty bottles that are antiques, and they show you. They have opium, they have heroin, they have morphine, they had chloroform mixed in with these things, and they had a lot of marijuana in medicines, particularly for cold and flu. And they had combinations where you would see an opium with marijuana, with chloroform, with a cough medicine. You can go to Google, look at the images, they're all over the place. There's tons of bottles like this people have saved. They're empty. So the person has a cough, so they would have cherry bark was another common ingredient. So I imagine if you took a medicine with marijuana, an opiate or two, and chloroform and some other herbs, I think licorice was used, different things, you would, with your cough, you'd fall asleep like a rock, and you'd probably get yourself at least 6, if not 10 hours sleep. And then you'd wake up, and that, I'm not a doctor, but I imagine that was effective because it would help the people heal up, or at least get a good night's rest, or I don't know what, but there was so much of this going on out there. Bayer, the Bayer aspirin company, used to make products like this. Coca-Cola had cocaine in a syrup. Yeah, you didn't have to go to a pharmacist for this, but that was commonly where you went, I guess. It was not controlled, and you got a bottle of a syrup that was Coca-Cola syrup, right? And it had cocaine in it. And you would go home and take the cocaine and take a teaspoon, tablespoon, whatever the dose was, throw it in some kind of beverage, or just put it in your mouth and swallow it. I don't know how they did it. And it would give you the effects of cocaine. And the people use it for menstrual cramps, aches, pains, energy. A lot of times people that were in bad shape with pain would use a morphine or a heroin pill, or an opiate, like I think the Lauded was one of the opiates they sold or something. And they would take it and with cocaine, and the cocaine would give them a stimulant effect to keep them awake, and the opiate would be central nervous system depressant. So and I'm not a doctor, I'm just telling you, I read a little bit about this on Google, and they would have, they wouldn't have the pain, and they wouldn't be sleeping, they would be functional. They also sold cocaine in wine. Okay, in wine. And people use cocaine, they used to use it to settle the stomach. I guess it numbed it, I don't know. So people would go out and drink wine, and there was a small amount of cocaine in there, so they could be wide awake drunk without getting an upset stomach from eating a meal and drinking the wine. And I never heard they put it in hard liquor, but people may have done that on their own. I have no idea. So I don't know how many. I know that before they passed this law, there was people that were getting addicted. Okay, people had arthritis, rheumatism, bones didn't heal right. They had, lots of things wrong with them, diseases, illnesses, and they were in pain. And they took these various opiates, which were dirt cheap, and they alleviated their pain that way, and that's how people operated. So then they started making these, so to speak, controlled, and you had to get a doctor's prescription in the 1918 era or someplace around there. So I imagine the doctors would just crack those prescriptions out, like, you went to see him, you gave him $1, $2, $3, whatever it was back then, and he wrote your prescription, and then you could go to another doctor and get all the prescriptions you wanted, So I remember when I was even in college, you were able to go to the drugstore in New York City and buy cough medicine with codeine in it. You had to be over 18 years old and sign a, the drugstore had a sheet of paper. You had to sign your name on there that you were receiving this codeine cough medicine. But I imagine the cough medicines they had back then, where they had marijuana, dilaudid, morphine, and all kind of chloroform in there, probably knocked you out 5 times more than the stuff you buy today. Now, waking up in the morning would be I don't know what that was like. I know I hate codeine because you wake up in the morning and you're hungover. You got to drink coffee like crazy to come out of it. But I don't know these other drugs, what happened. They did use codeine back then too, but I don't think it was that popular. Um, so if Trump legalizes drugs, which I'm sure Musk and Trump are going to go for if they prophetically, with time, ever have a chance, why would they do it? Because I would say at least 50, if not 60 or 70% of the people in jail are there for drugs and drugs related. So they could drain the jails, or at least not put new people in jail for this. In other words, the jails would be preserved for people that are committing real crimes where there's a victim, not a statute. Well, you possessed a plant, go to jail for 11 years. So, and there's plenty of addicts in America today, and it's not helping. And I think that this oxycodone and fentanyl epidemic is, those are synthetic drugs. And there's people that say they're more addictive than the more natural drugs. The real natural central nervous depressant drug is called opium. People would chew it, or they make a powder, and that people didn't inject it back then. They would either drink it, chew it. You could smoke it with an opium pipe. That went on a lot. They also use insufflation. I'm not going to graphically explain insufflation. It's gross, but it's going up the exit ramp with it, and it worked. And that is the more natural, and I'm guessing, as a non-doctor, non-professional, maybe it was less addicting than the more modern synthetics. You can't put a patent on heroin or morphine or opium or marijuana. You can't patent that at all. So there's no money in private industry to get into that. I know many years ago I had a friend that was a pharmacist, and they used to sell cocaine to doctors and dentists, and they had a jar about like this, and it was, I don't know, $20-$30 a jar. Today the street value of that would probably be several $1,000s, but I imagine they could still buy it. But the DEA probably wants to know why the heck they need a big bottle of this stuff. They might have a reason. I don't know. I know, like, going back about 30, 40 years, they used to give cancer patients in America a concoction that had a morphine. It was a liquid. It had a morphine with cocaine in it. So that people could take it. They took teaspoons or tablespoons of it. They took it, and it would alleviate the pain, and they wouldn't be sitting there going, it would keep them awake, so they had functionality. And I imagine the cocaine also works that way. So that would stop the war on drugs, clear the courts from all this nonsense, and it could open up the door for more immigration cases. But see, Trump's going to do a war on the drug cartels if he gets it, assuming he gets sworn in. And he wants that drug laws in place so he could lock up the drug cartel people. So I don't think he's interested in announcing that or doing it right away. He'd have to clear that stuff out and then get into it. Also, when you really close the border with Mexico, which they intend to do, the Trump administration, you're going to cut, and also he's going to work the ports. He's going to use the Navy and the Coast Guard to patrol the ports and the waterways looking for smuggling. So the price of first of all, the availability of drugs in America could go down by 70% for street drugs. And that would spike the prices incredibly. You see, the wealthy people can take these hard drugs, and you know how they say, like, I don't know, Johnny Walker on the bottle of liquor says, or one of them does, I guess they all do, drink responsibly. Well, the elite take drugs, what they would call responsibly. Now, look, the drugs are there for a reason. They can help alleviate pain, and they got a purpose. Okay, it's common in a lot of countries where people take the cocaine. The cocaine powders is a synthetic. Not really. It comes from opium, but they do things to it. So what the people in a lot of other countries do is they just take the coca leaf and they chew it. And I've been in countries, I believe, where you could go to the store and buy cocaine tea bags. I never did it, but I knew a doctor that went and brought some back, and he said that the effects were pretty mild. In high altitudes, people use this, like where it's 10,000 feet high, because it enables them to deal with the thin air up there and work, and you walk around and climb mountains with loads on, delivering goods and things like that. So now that's you're getting when you're chewing the coca leaf, or you're chewing the opium, or perhaps smoking it, you're getting pure herbs that are not, or flowers or plants that are not synthesized or treated in labs with artificial processes. And I really don't know how addicting they are, but I would guess they're far less addicting than the synthetics. As a guess, again, I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but my take would be. So today, you have millions and millions of people that are addicted to alcohol, don't we? Yeah, it's huge. People in the rehab business that rehabilitate, people for drinking, not talking drugs now, I'm talking alcohol. The recidivism rate, that's a term, means they go back to their old ways, in other words, drunk, is about 80%. And that includes, according to what they tell me, I haven't verified it, that includes Alcoholics Anonymous and rehab facilities where, how do they do that? They usually, the person goes to a live-in facility where they detox them. So, they search him and his luggage, and he gets a room, and they might give him drugs to help him withdraw. I don't have all the details, I'm not sure, but they stay there for a period of time. It could be 5 or 10 days, it could be months, I don't know. And they stay there for a while. And they get clean, and then they go home. Now, some go to what they call a halfway house, where what a halfway house usually is some sort of a house made up into living units. So you might have, 5 bedrooms, each bedroom with a private bathroom and a communal kitchen, communal TV room, and that kind of thing. Maybe an exercise room, maybe an outside jacuzzi or a swimming pool. And they go and they live there, and they have like somebody in the house that's the head of the house that's trained, and they can urine test the people if they think they're getting stoned, and then they throw them out of the house because they don't want it spreading to the other people with temptation. And they also sometimes have group sessions in the house and stuff like that. So some people stay there. Usually the rich and the elite go to the live-in facility, which could be extremely posh, okay? They have a lot of these that are set up more like mansion-esque, where the person has a suite, they have their own room, and it has another room, so it might be a 2-room suite, like a hotel suite. And they go in there and they detox, and they have private sessions with therapists, group sessions, and people cook meals for them. They don't cook themselves. They get very healthy meals. They have exercise. They have, relaxation things like treadmills, swimming pool, jacuzzi, yoga classes, maybe all kinds of different things. And they stay there, and once they physiological. When I was a deputy sheriff as a young guy, I worked in the jail, and I saw people kick hard drugs, heroin. Okay, I was not a corrections officer. I was a deputy sheriff, but I did work in the county jail, and they what does it look like? Well, you'd see them, they'd get booked, and the next day you'd see them, they'd come out to the yard where, we had housing for them that looked like this, like a U, and they were set up, they were old military barracks, and they got set up in there. And these were generally not very high risk prisoners. But they could be armed robbery, car theft, stuff like that. Someone armed robbery, maybe not. We would put those in cells waiting when they were waiting trial, and someone that was a rapist, a murderer, or a homicide, they would be inside a real jail cell. But these guys had barracks. They had a trustee in the barrack. Maybe each barrack was 20, 25 beds. It had a bunch of toilets, like military. You'd have like 6 or 8 toilets, and I think they had a few urinals, and then they had sinks with mirrors, metal mirrors for shaving, and that was about it. And they had beds, and they had a little area where they could keep personal stuff like pictures, and they didn't have much. And it was surrounded by a yard which had basketball, and usually just basketball. And the whole thing was fenced in with like schoolyard fencing, chain link fencing. And that was within a big compound where there were many such places. So the guy would come out, and they had picnic tables made out of wood in this yard, and the guys would sit there, They had nothing to do. They hung out in the yard. They'd get out in the sun and stuff like that. So they were out there, and I'd see them kick, and they would, they'd have chills, hot and cold, their face would look flushed. What did it look like? It looked like they had a bad flu. Not that bad, but, a serious flu, maybe 101 temperature, 102, not 105 or anything like that. They could be functional. They could walk around. They could answer questions, you know. But they were not happy. They were pretty miserable, you know. They, for how long? A day or two. That was it. Now that meant the physiological went away, but the psychological was still there. So anyway, I imagine Trump's going to eventually get on that bandwagon, but I think he's saving it till he breaks up the cartels in America. My take on it, because the amount of savings for America would be huge, and it would end all the drug problems, and they would manufacturers would just sell the stuff, and then they would put a tax on it. Maybe if you bought a $20 box of opium or something like that, they'd put $2 or $3 on it, which they could use to fund rehab facilities and that kind of thing. But I don't think prophetically we're going to get there time-wise. So I just thought I'd bring that out. Anyway, there's more with the wars. So we're still awaiting what is going to happen with the attack on the American ships. What happened? We don't have the details. We know they launched an attack. I don't think the Houthis know what damage was done, if any, and America hasn't made a comment. And I did tell you that Russia has not been able to take back the Kursk region that Ukraine is occupying. I'm going through my notes. Our new Defense Minister Katz said now's the time to hit the Iranian facilities because they're defenseless. The U.S. agrees with them. The U.S. said we agree with Israel. Trump said Israel should hit the nukes. You see what's going on? Netanyahu said if Iran attacks us, we're going to bankrupt them basically by hitting their oil industry, and I guess natural gas too. Although that's just a pittance of the revenue that the oil brings in, but why not, you know? America said they're no longer going to threaten Israel with withholding weapons, and they're not holding weapons back, although they did say Israel didn't meet their desire for the humanitarian aid in Gaza. Now, just let me explain to you the stupidity of humanitarian aid in Gaza. The Gazan people themselves, the so-called civilians, ambush the trucks bringing the civilian aid in and steal as much of it as they can. The truck stops in traffic or whatever, they just attack it and take boxes. They sell it or they hoard it. Hamas then puts it in warehouses, UNWRA or otherwise, that they can control, and they hoard it. So all you got to do, and when this, just to wake you up and show you how stupid America is you just tell Hamas and the Palestinian people, we're bringing aid in, okay? If anybody robs the aid or Hamas hoards it, we're going to stop the aid for 3 days. You bring it in, they're going to attack it. One of them will, Hamas or the people. Then you take the aid and you hold it for 3 days. Send it in again. They attack it the next time. We're not sending aid for 7 days. Then you send it again. Then the civilians are going to attack the guys trying to steal it. And if Hamas tries to hoard it continually, then you say, okay, now we're not sending aid for 2 weeks. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn the people against Hamas. And that's a good thing. Netanyahu's trying to turn the people against the Iranian regime by making speeches in Farsi. That's the language they speak in Iran. Poland says that they're prepping for war with Russia and is telling all of NATO to do it also, probably all of the EU. Trump, you got to listen to this. I mean, you just got to hear this. I've never seen or heard anything like this in my life. Trump writes a letter to the Biden administration telling them that this guy Marshall, who's the real head of Hamas, sitting in the five-star hotel in Qatar, okay, eating filet mignon and duck l'orange and, flambe steak and all this. Trump says that the Biden administration should extradite him out of Qatar to America and try him for the death of American citizens, which he's guilty of. Now, will Biden do this? I don't know. The Qataris were supposed to expel him out of Qatar, and that never came to pass. I know the media is talking like it did, but the reality is there was a lot of talk and nothing ever happened. Qatar is very anti-Israel, and they're no friend of America. They use America. Do you understand how this is by itself such an incitement to war? Just by itself. So America agrees it's the right time to hit Iran. So everybody, Israel, Trump, the Biden administration, they all agree on this, that this is the right time to hit Iran. You think Iran's going to get hit? Of course it is. What Trump is doing is he's playing to the right-wing people in America, the Republicans, and he's promising them everything they want, just about, okay? Carry concealed weapon permits, reciprocity on down the line, okay? And this is going to aggravate the daylights out of the deep state, especially the Federal Reserve, which is the heart of the deep state. But I don't know, they're really, in reality, just a private institution. So I don't know what they're going to be able to do against Trump. Very interesting, though. Trump is talking about deporting what is being referred to as the illegal aliens, those that cross the border illegally into America. He doesn't seem to separate between those that filed for amnesty and those that just crossed illegally. He said that he would be deporting, these are the numbers Trump used, 10 to 30 million of these, what they're referring to as illegal aliens that entered the country illegally. 10 to 30 million. So when I tell you the Border Patrol guy, the retired guy from Texas, 26 years in service, said there's 30 to 50 million in the United States, Trump is also using the 30 million figure now. Million, not thousand, million. You gotta understand what a threat this is, because 60 to 70% are military age males. So again, you got 800 FEMA camps in America, and what are they? They've never been used. What are they there for? The illegal aliens? You couldn't put anywhere near that amount of people in 800 FEMA camps. 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 Maybe a FEMA camp holds 5,000, 10,000 people. You can't. Is it to stop the true believers and the Israelites that want to go back to Israel on the second exit, the next great Exodus? Probably. I don't know why they've never used them. There's been massive amounts of people over the years that have been lost their houses due to floods, hurricanes, winds, tornadoes, fires, and they never put them up in the FEMA camps. So something's mysterious about that, isn't it? Something. What it is they really intend to do with it, I'm not sure. They could use them for illegal people because they could rotate them in and out of the FEMA camps rather rapidly. Maybe they go in and within a month they're deported, or 2 months, and then you put another batch in. So maybe that's what they'll do with them. I don't know. God says with the next great Exodus, they're going to be coming out with his fury poured out. So that makes me think possibly they intend, not that it will happen, they intend to put the Israelites and the true believers that would go to Israel in these camps. But I read nothing about that in the scriptures. It just says that we'll come out without haste. So I don't believe it ever comes to pass. They may want it to come to pass, but wanting it to happen and having it happen are far from the same thing. Especially for these ungodly governments. See, Trump is giving the people all the things they want to hear for the flesh. You'll be safe. We'll be a world power again. The economy will be good. See, but making God pleased with the people, that's irrelevant to Trump. It's a non-existent concept. You must understand that. When these wars break down, the Jeremiah 30 verse 11 wars, we should start calling them that. I'll read it to you in a bit. So the church people are going to start to freak out. Why? Well, where's the rapture? God says he delivers his people from the wrath to come. But that, first of all, are they really his people? Number two, does that mean a rapture up to heaven? Of course not. They're going to start to see through that. Okay? Then they're going to start to see through, why is this happening to America? It's such a great place. We have all these churches and millions of people go to church on Sunday. They're going to wonder about that. They're going to wonder where the beast is, where the mark of the beast is, where's the false prophet, where's the talking statue, why isn't any of this happening? Why hasn't Yeshua returned to earth yet? Why is Israel rising up? They're going to get very, very confused. And they're going to become angry with the churches because they're going to start finding out, maybe not, but they might start finding out that there are prophecies in the Bible that explain what's really happening, and the church never taught it to them. Church never taught them Zechariah 12, never taught them Jeremiah 30, never taught them that the appearing of the Son of Man in the clouds is not the return to earth of Yeshua. And many things, they're going to get crazy. They're not going to know what to do. But they're going to be angry and mad at the church people. They're going to be done with the churches. if the churches were real of God, would presidents like Clinton and Obama and Biden let them have a tax exemption and be a participant in flourishing these churches that want to destroy Satan's kingdom? Which, you're not going to tell me that Obama and Clinton and, Biden and them are of God, So you got to ask yourself these questions, which a lot of people don't want to do. Let's see what's cooking in the live stream. Bigfoot for America. Now there you go. So Jeremiah 30 verse 11. Now, when they say world war, correct them and say the Jeremiah 30 verse 11 war. It's in the Bible. I didn't, well, we could also take it out of Jeremiah 46 verse 28. Same thing. I'll read it in both places. Fear not, O Jacob, that's the 12 tribes of Israel, my servant, saith. Now the word for servant is 5650 Aved. Yeah, you could use it as servant. Yeah. Like a bondage servant or a servant or something. My servant Jacob. Well, I'm in verse 27, I should go. Jeremiah 46:27. Fear not thou, O my servant Yaakov, or Jacob in English, and be not dismayed, O Israel. For behold, I will save thee from afar. That's the next great Exodus. And thy seed from the land of their captivity. Next great Exodus. And Yaakov shall return and be in rest and at ease, and none shall make him afraid. When this gets there, after some decades, you'll see the great falling away. And then you'll see the Gog and Magog with the tribulation. But we're far away from there now. Verse 28. Fear thou not, O Jacob, my servant, saith Jehovah, for I am with thee. Listen to this, for I will make a full end of all nations whither I have driven thee, but I will not make a full end of thee, but correct thee in measure. Yet will I not leave thee wholly unpunished. All the nations he scattered the Israelites into over the many centuries. I reckon this to be about 125 nations. It's everything in Europe, practically, if not all, the whole Middle East. At least Northern Africa, and then you have to throw in South Africa. I think every North American, Central American, and South American country in the Caribbean had them, and places in Asia, I believe, had them. So I would say it's got to come up. I don't have an exact count, but something like 100, 125, maybe more. I don't know. It's a huge number. Are going to all be destroyed. And that's, in my opinion, what you're seeing stacking up today. Now, that doesn't mean all the people get killed, but what I see stacking up today looks a lot like the Jeremiah 30:11 war, which maybe it's not a war, maybe the Lord burns them up, but I think it'll be a war. Now, you could ignore this scripture And that's called, instead of the Schofield Bible, it's the Ostrich Bible in my book. You stick your head in the ground and ignore everything going on around you. I'm going to get raptured out of this. And, you know. So let's take it on in Jeremiah 30. Well, let's read the chapter so we get the sequencing of what's going on, or the timing as it relates to other events. The word that came to Jeremiah from Jehovah, saying, "Thus speaketh Jehovah Elohim of Israel, the Lord God of Israel." Can you find me a scripture that says the Lord God of the church? I can't. Saying, "Write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo," and if you're a believer, even though you're not Israelite born, you're in Yeshua. How could you not be? "For lo, the days come, all Israel shall be saved." How about that? How about New Jerusalem has 12 gates made out of a giant pearl, each one guarded by an angel, and each gate named after one of the tribes of Israel? So if you're not incorporated into Israel as a believer, what gate are you going to enter into in New Jerusalem? A Catholic gate, a Vatican gate, a Baptist gate, a Presbyterian gate? Come on. "For lo, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah." Israel's 10 tribes, Judah is Judah and Levi, 2 tribes, total 12. "Saith Jehovah, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers." And, you know, it's, I think, Genesis 15, maybe verse 7. It's, he gives us the land from the Euphrates to the Nile. It's about 100 times the size of what we have now. "For thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace." Well, that certainly doesn't sound like the schmuck comes out of the pit, as the church narrative goes, not my narrative, and makes peace come about and then breaks it in 7 years. We don't read anything like that. So it says, "For thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask you now and see whether a man doth travail with child." The travail word means the process of giving birth. The water broke, cervix is dilated, baby crowning, that part of the birth process. And the baby coming out. "Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness." This might just be the ones laying siege to Israel. It may not be the Israelites doing this, but it likely could be. "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. No other day is like it, and we'll show you why." "It is even the time of Jacob's trouble." That's Zechariah 12. "But he shall be saved out of it." In Gog and Magog, you read that, you got to read Gog and Magog in Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11, the whole book of Joel, Ezekiel 38, 39, and Zechariah 14. It's also referred to as the great day of the Lord. Jacob's trouble, Zechariah 12, precedes it, because the nations in Jacob's trouble seem to be very similar to Psalm 83 nations, and these nations don't appear in Gog and Magog because they're gone. So that's your sequencing, okay? Alas, for that day is great, so there is none like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And Gog and Magog, you read in Zechariah 14, the women are raped, the houses are looted, and half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. That doesn't sound like saved out of it. You want to tell the woman it's okay to be raped repeatedly and don't worry about it, you're saved out of it? Come on, it's a joke. Okay. For it shall come to pass in that, now the half going into captivity in Jerusalem, you see, time and times and half a time is not 42 months or 1260 days. It's referencing how many times they went into captivity. Number one, Egypt. Number two, Babylon. Number three, Rome, when 70 AD destroyed Herod Temple. They went to Rome, 200,000, which was a lot back then. Okay? The half a time is here, where you see, I better read it here, Zechariah 14, where you see half of Jerusalem go into captivity. Behold, that's not now, that's Gog and Magog, the day of the Lord. It's going to be a good 60-something years down the road, or 50-something. It's going to be quite a ways, maybe 40 years down the road, but it's going to be down the road a bunch. Behold, the day of Jehovah cometh, and thy spoils shall be divided in the midst of thee. Great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Doesn't look that way yet at all. For I will gather all heathen nations against Jerusalem to battle. And all heathen nations is not what you see in Psalm 83 or in Zechariah 12. This is different. Against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken. That doesn't occur in Zechariah 12. And the houses rifled, that's looted or pillaged, plundered, whatever you want to call it. And the women ravished, that's rape. And half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall Jehovah go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle. Zechariah 14:4, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. Now that's not Yeshua, that's the glory of God of Israel. You got to read Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11, and you see him leaving the next temple and going to the Mount of Olives and standing there. It's not Yeshua. When did Yeshua, when he fought in the day of battle, when did Yeshua ever fight in the day of battle in the Bible? He does when he returns to earth in Revelation 19, you could say, for sure, but not until then. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof towards the east and towards the west. There shall be a great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove towards the north and half towards the south, and you shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal, and you shall flee like as you fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah and Judah, and Jehovah Elohim shall come, and all the saints with thee. Okay. Now the word for saints is kadosh. This is Hebrew, the holy ones. They could be the angels. You could say saints. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light, it could be this is not the, of course, it's not the end of the world, so it's not the dead rising. Um, I don't know. It's probably the angels, the Kadosh, the holy ones. My guess, because it could be like Revelation 19 here is what we're reading about, with Yeshua coming on a white horse with all the angels in heaven on white horses. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to Jehovah, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. And it shall be in that. Now, we don't read that in Zechariah 12. I don't see it there. And it shall be in that day that living waters shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them towards the former sea and half of them towards the hinder sea. See, I guess when you read this, that there's a separation of time to some extent between Gog and Magog and the tribulation, I would think. I don't put a lot of time into that because I'm a lot more concerned with what's getting everybody ready for Zechariah 12 and having a temple and the glory of God of Israel and the two witnesses, Elijah and Apostle John, and all of this. And then when we get that under our belt and that's passed, then we'll dig deep into Gog and Magog. But we have plenty of time to that one. All the land shall be turned as a plain. See, this is the new heaven and the new earth, which happens at the end of Gog and Magog. South of Jerusalem, it shall be lifted up and inhabited in her place, from Benjamin gate unto the place of the first gate, the corner gate, and from there, and from the tower Hanalel unto the king's winepress. And men shall dwell in it, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord shall smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes. You probably say sockets, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And it shall come to pass in that day that a great tumult from Jehovah shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. Well, they fight against the one standing next to them in the Gog and Magog passages, Ezekiel 38, 39, quite similar. And Judah also shall fight at Jerusalem. So I keep telling you, after Zechariah 12, we'll be fighting. And the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance. And so shall be the plague of the horse, of the mule and the camel, of the ass and of the beasts that shall be in these tents as this plague. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations, the heathen nations, the Goyim, that is left of all the nations that came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Jehovah of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. And if the family of Egypt go not up, and come not, that it have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen, and come not up to keep the feast of the tabernacles. So this precedes the needing the mark to buy and sell. So it appears to me that they go into rebellion at some point after Gog and Magog. They get no rain. Who do you know who has the power to shut off the rain for as long as they want? Is Elijah and Apostle John. So they got no rain. Food gets scarce, and then they start with the mark nonsense. So if you don't have the mark, you're not going to be able to buy or sell food. That's what it looks like to me. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. In that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses holiness, and that's Kadosh, I think. Yeah, Kadosh. Holy unto Jehovah. Kadosh Jehovah is what it says. And the pots in the Lord's house, sacrifices in the temple, shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yea, every pot in every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto Jehovah of hosts, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and saith therein, and in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of Jehovah of hosts. So sacrifice is an offering, and this has never happened yet. Go to Jeremiah 30, pick it up again. Verse 7, Jeremiah 37, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. This is when they lay siege around Israel, and the two witnesses burn them up all around. And you could read that in Zechariah 12, specifically verse 6. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith Jehovah of armies, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck. That's like, what's the yoke? The UN censuring Israel, the courts trying to lock up the leaders of Israel, putting economic sanctions on what they call the settlers of Israel. Biden saying I'll withhold the weapons, and the UN giving us dictates, and all of this stuff, Which shall come to pass in that day, saith Jehovah of hosts, that I will break the yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. But they shall serve Jehovah Elohim and David Hamelech, and David the king, whom I will raise up unto them. Now, you don't know what that is, but if you read if you read Ezekiel chapter 45, Ezekiel 40 to 48 talks about the next temple, which we call Ezekiel's temple, because he describes it. And if you read chapter 45, you'll see there's an anointed prince in the next temple doing sacrifices for the people. And David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne. So this anointed prince is the one from the line of David that's in there, and he's the one in Daniel 9:26 that gets cut off, not Yeshua, this anointed prince. I don't know who he is. Do I think he's in Israel? I have no direct knowledge. I think so. Do I know the two witnesses are in Israel? That I know. But they shall serve. Okay, we did that. Now I'm in verse 10, Jeremiah 30:10. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Yaakov, saith Jehovah, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return. That's the next great Exodus. And shall be, that's the lost tribes will be coming too, of course, because they're going to wake up. And shall be in rest, and shall be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to save thee. Now the word for save thee is Yasha, salvation thee. It's the root of Yeshua's name, salvation. So, saith the Lord, to salvation thee. Okay, that would be better English, but it's choppy. Hebrew gets choppy in English. Though I make a full end of all nations, whither I have gathered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. For thus saith Jehovah, thy bruise is incurable, and thy wound is grievous. There is none to plead thy cause, that thou may be bound up. Thou hast no healing medicines. All thy lovers have forgotten thee, they seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitude of thy lawlessness, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thy affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable, the multitude of thy lawlessness, because thy sins were so increased, I have done these things to thee. Therefore, all they that devour you shall be devoured, and all thy adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. They're going to be leaving their country. That's what happens to Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Okay? To some extent, it happens to America just with the foreign workers, typically. That's in Jeremiah 50:51. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith Jehovah, because they called thee an outcast, saying, this is Zion whom no man seeketh after. You see, Israel is really the safest place to be for the true believers. But it doesn't look that way, does it? No, no, no. Thus saith Jehovah, behold, I will bring again the captivity of Yaakov's tents, and have mercy on his dwelling places, and the city shall be builded upon its own heap, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof, probably the temple. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving, and the voice of them that make merry, and I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I also will glorify them, and they shall not be small. Small means insignificant. Their children also shall be as aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me, and I will punish all that oppress them. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governors or judges shall proceed from the midst of them. and I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me, for who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith Jehovah? And you shall be my people, and I will be your God, the Lord, Jehovah. I will be Elohim, be your Elohim, your God. Jeremiah 30, verse 23. Behold, the whirlwind of the Lord goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. The fierce anger of Jehovah shall not return until he have done, and until he have performed the intents of his heart. In the latter days you shall consider it. Well, we're in the latter days. And I'm going to take a 1-minute break, and then we'll cover, for those of you that, if I can get out of this chair, it's so slippery here. I can't move the chair. Let me see if I can get up. I got the floor cleaner, and it's makes it slippery. All right, that was hard. I'll be right back, and we'll do Zechariah 12. All right, now I can move this back. Zechariah 12 is already in play. It's not, as you'll see, it's not in its complete fullness yet, but it's on the way nicely. Let me go look at the live stream real quick. Can anyone please read the Middle East and Europe? I have no idea what this person's saying. Okay. We can pick it up in we'll start in 1. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith Jehovah, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. So this is specifically for Israel. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about. Now, it doesn't sound like the man of sin coming with 7-year peace treaty breaking it in the middle does it. No, that's church comic book. Um, when they shall, the man of peace doesn't make a covenant with Israel. I mean, why would Israel make a covenant with this character? You know, and to all the he's making it with God. You know, unto anyway, let's just continue. Unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and Jerusalem. That's the land we have now. And who's in siege against us now? Lebanon at the north, Gaza in the southwest, Yemen way south, Syria east, Iraq northeast, and Iran northeast. Jordan's not joined in, Turkey isn't joined in, Saudi's not joined in. You know, there's more to go. Egypt, I suppose there's more to go. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that, now Egypt and Turkey, I'm not sure if they're going to be in on this one, but I think so. I would have to check Gog and Magog to see if they're listed in Gog and Magog. But let's do that. We have a noisy pipe that makes the shrieking noises. You might be hearing that. There's a lot of people that have worked out the list of countries. I'm trying to find a good one, and I'll read you the list. A lot of this is people trying to define Gog and Magog. Well, let's see. Let me look for a map, and it's going to be quicker. Now, there's a lot of people that get these countries wrong because they have old names and they don't get it right. What it really is you could think of it as the inner circle around Israel is Zechariah 12, Psalm 83, and the outer circle is the Gog and Magog. They're further away, like Ethiopia and stuff like that. Let's see if we could find a good one. This one might be good. We have to see if it's sharp. Yeah, Turkey seems to be in Gog and Magog. So is Egypt. So we may not see Egypt and Turkey in this next fight. We're going to see Jordan. verse 3, in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. And cut in pieces is like Roman old sword days, sliced and diced. You're dead if you're cut in pieces, you're dead. In that day, saith Jehovah, I will smite every horse with astonishment and the rider with madness, and I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah. That's when we go, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the judges, it's not governors, it's judges. The judges of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in Jehovah of hosts their God. In that day will I make the judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall be inhabited and remain still in her own place, even in Jerusalem. The translation's not quite good in the English. Okay, so who do you know has fire coming out of their mouth? The two witnesses, which are also prophets. God says that he's going to run Israel again with the prophets. In Isaiah 1, we only got two prophets coming. The two witnesses. Now, I'm not talking about someone prophesying, I'm someone talking about really holding the office of the prophet. So we're in Isaiah 1:24. Therefore saith the Lord, Jehovah of hosts, the mighty one of Israel. Okay, I never hear him identified with the churches. I will ease me of my adversaries and avenge me of my enemies, and I will turn my hand upon thee. That's a good thing. And purely purge away thy dross, and take away all thy tin, and I will restore thy judges as at the first. That was Moses and Aaron. They were prophets, both of them, and judges. And thy counselors as at the beginning. Moses and Aaron had the 70 counselors to help them. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. So the two witnesses are successful. Back to Zechariah 12. So that's what they translate governor, or really the judges. Zechariah 12:7. This is one of the most important chapters in your Bible, and the church ignores it for the most part. Jehovah also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. In that day, this is probably the day of vengeance, shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as Elohim, as the angel of the Lord before them. That was the angel, the glory of God of Israel, with Moses and Aaron and the children in the wilderness. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the heathen nations. It says the heathen, you could make it heathen nations, or just heathens, that come against Jerusalem. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. So God poured his spirit on the house of David and the people in Jerusalem. So it's quite safe to say now they're believers. And then what happens? And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Havramon in the valley of Megiddo. Well, they say Megiddo. All right. When Yeshua was being crucified and they stuck him in the side with the spear and the water of blood came out, that's the piercing. Was there a big mourning with all the families mourning Yeshua back then? Heck no, nothing of the sort. This has not yet happened. Yeshua was pierced, that we know, but this has never happened yet. And it will happen. Okay? And what happens when they see Yeshua? What does our Bible tell us happens? Remember, they're believers when they see him, because just before he appears, this is Yeshua appearing in the clouds. What am I talking about? Well, several scriptures, but just to give you a quick one. Matthew 24:30. And then shall appear, this is not the return to earth, this is appear, the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth, no, it's the tribes of the land of Israel, mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Now we read Revelation 1:7. This is concealed by the church. It's horrible that they do that. Revelation 1:7. See, people trust them and they betray them, and on purpose. And the people are about to realize that any day now. Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him. And all the kindreds of the earth, all the tribes of the land of Israel, shall wail, that's mourning, because of him. Even so, amen. This sounds just like Zechariah 12, but it's in the New Testament. Yes, it is Zechariah 12. So what happens when you see Yeshua and you're a believer? 1 John 3:2. Hereby know ye the Spirit. Whoops, I'm in 4. No. 1 John 3:2. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And what happens when you see him? I'll show you. John 6:40. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So when they see Yeshua, they have everlasting life. And you get a little bit of a taste of this in Isaiah 60, verse 1. Arise, shine. Did Moses shine when he was on Mount Sinai and he came down? They had to cover him with a veil. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But Jehovah shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. This is more or less focusing on the glory of God of Israel, not seeing Yeshua, but that's, I believe, why they're shining. And then we go to Malachi 4. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and remember the two witnesses burning everyone up like that, right? As an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Jehovah of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name, so this is to the believers, shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his extremities. And you shall go forth and frolic about like calves from the stall. So when they see Yeshua in the clouds, you get changed. You'll glow, emanate forth light. Yes, you will. Moses did, so will you. And you will be young again and jump about like the baby calf coming out of the stall. You'll be young again. Everlasting life is not eternity. That you get in New Jerusalem, when you eat of the tree of life and drink of the water of life. You get that there. Because there's no death in New Jerusalem. So you'll still be able to die, but the everlasting life is for an indeterminate period of time, similar to what happened before the flood, where they were living 900 years, but probably much longer, because we get a double reward this time. But you just have to live long enough to make it into New Jerusalem. And these are the things the church is concealing from the people, which is horrible. Didn't get the notification. Yeah, they don't send the notifications out to everybody, unfortunately. It's hit or miss. So that's what I got. So that knocked me out a little bit. I'm still okay, but enough for one day. So please pray for me and my wife for a peace, safety, protection, joy. She keeps getting better. Pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, to be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for me and my wife to be happy, healthy, whole, and have joy and peace. And pray for our finances and health and healing. And pray for better videos. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And you got my email address. You could, in the top of the chat and in the description box, you could ask questions. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And please pray for my hernia. It's been bothering me again. Usually it doesn't. It's starting to bother me. I appreciate it. And I pray, I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And you might want to subscribe for more teachings like this. And I'd appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up button. I'm not sure if it does any good anymore, but I'd appreciate it. And I'm out. Thank you.